This is a pre-recording from 2021. Some of the details as it relates to the roles of our host and one of our interviewees have since changed.
Hello and welcome to Making It Through the Rain. My name is Cheryl Baldo. Today we have collaborated with the Youth Ministries Department led by Ms. Tara Robinson, who also would be our co-host for the evening. The program is intended to motivate and encourage anyone who is aspiring to be successful. Life's journey presents a lot of challenges, and we are hoping that as we hear from different speakers and different individuals who would have gone through their journey and been successful, we can motivate you now to do likewise. In a normal day, if I have to set out to go anywhere, I would check the weather forecast to see what kind of day it's going to be like. It will help me determine whether I need to take an umbrella, a coat, or maybe some particular type of footwear. Unfortunately, life's journey is not so easy to forecast because we have dull days, we have dreary days, we have sunny days, and when we are faced with the downpour of problems and challenges and failures and setbacks, this leaves us with probably no way out. Thankfully, for some, all they experience is a little drizzle, though a drizzle may interrupt what they are about, it still may not stall their progress. Today we have 4 guests who are willing to share their experiences and how they made it through the rain. But before I turn you over to Tara, please bow your heads with me while I pray. Our Father, we thank you for this opportunity to share. We pray, Lord, that you may bless this program, be with the listeners, open their ears and their minds, and help that our intention to motivate and encourage would be successful because we would have your blessing on it, for we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Over to you, Tara.
Thank you, Sister Baldo. At this time, our program will begin with Norman Clark. Norman Clark is a senior film and television and management accountant, a buy-to-let landlord who started homeless. Norman, that just doesn't add up, you know? How did you start homeless? Let us know.
Well, being a young man, 19, basically a boy, circumstances dictated that I rented a room from an old lady from the church, and life was very difficult, and I was out of work, so all I could do was mini cabin, and wasn't earning much money, and the cars broke down, so I had, life got so bad that the 2p's that I would put away and the 1p's I'd put in a jar, in the good times, I'd have to take that to buy bread and a pint of milk. And the embarrassment of standing in a shop trying to pay for, a pound's worth of goods with 1p's, and everybody in the line's getting really upset. I can't tell you how low that is, but God brought me through it. Wow.
So here you are, living on the grace of a church sister at 19 years old. What were you doing? What were you studying? I know you're mini cabbing, but were you at school? What happened with that?
I think at that point I'd already I soon embarked on learning electrical installation, which is a passion. I always wanted to do it, so I went to Brixton College and started doing that. And eventually, once I qualified, I started to rewire houses and luxury flats and so forth. Then eventually I got a job with British Telecom, because that was still very low paid, always underpaid. But I got a job with British Telecom, and that changed my life because the stability it gave me, a real quite decent salary, but just the stability, it's like working for the civil service. Mm-hmm. So
how long did you stay with
4.5 years, and then I volunteered for voluntary redundancy, and they paid me a lot of money, by today's standards it was a lot of money, which gave me again a further platform. And one of the things I'd like to say is, coming up in the 70s, 80s, Britain, for black people, I remember the head of my school telling my parents that electrical is good. He's not cut out. He won't ever make an accountant, a doctor, or a lawyer or anything. And the thing is, I believe them. Yeah. I remember seeing accountants and just looking at them and thinking, yeah, that's them. I'll never, I won't amount to that or whatever. But by the time I got to my mid-20s, I realized I could do anything I want by the grace of God. So I then signed up for accountancy and started to do that. Wow,
just to think about, we have our social issues now. We know that social justice is a problem now in 2021. 10 times worse back then. I can't imagine. So it was almost as though you were being placed.
Yeah.
You were being told.
Yeah.
This was the sky wasn't your limit.
Yeah.
Electrical engineering or electrical installation was your limit to become an electrician, and you couldn't be more.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being an electrician, obviously. But you're not going to make the kind of money you can make as a top accountant, basically.
And did you always know you wanted to be an accountant? No.
I believed that. In fact, what I wanted to be was an electrician.
Oh.
But you get to a certain level and you just think, but there's more than this, and I can do more. So I did more by the grace of God.
Okay, fantastic. So you've got your money. BT has given you this lovely redundancy package. What have you done with it?
Well, what I did, I bought a new car first. Not a brand new car, but I upgraded.
A newer car?
Yeah, a newer car. Paid off a few debts. But basically, I pinched the money, and that's the first thing I did was return my tithe. That was very important to me. And I remember at the gym, one of the guys he was an ex-church person and got really upset that I was giving away a substantial amount of money to the church, and but I believed that I'd be stealing, so I gave the money, and I pinched the money to help me. I started to do evening classes because I still needed to work or hustle during the day, so I still did. So I pinched the money, and it helped fund and subsidize the study at night, which was very difficult to. And then
were you still doing the cabbing at this time?
Yeah, I was doing all of that. There were times I was working 18, 19 hours a day.
Wow.
Just so tough, really tough life.
How did the other cab drivers take you?
Oh yeah, when I turned up at 19, they laughed at me. They just said, this is a man's game, run along little boy, because back in those days, it's not like Uber now where everything's recorded and so forth. Back then, people would get their throats slashed, people would get stabbed, the drivers would get slashed and stabbed for their money, people would run and all of that. So it was a very dangerous game. Not only that, I had to pay, because of my age, for the hire and reward insurance, I had to pay 4 times what a grown man would pay. So I had to work so much harder than the other drivers just to make the same money. It was so tough. But after 5 years of doing that, I had my deposit by the age of 25.
Wow.
To buy my first flat or apartment.
Wow. So you've done it then. For some people now, they'll be like, oh, this must be the end.
No.
You've made it. You've come through. Here you were renting a room, basically a lodger, and now from the brink of homelessness, you've bought a house.
Yeah, well, a flat.
You've bought a flat, not a house. Yeah, you've bought yourself an apartment. Life should be looking up for you now.
Well, it was. I did that while I was at BT. So then as soon as I did that, then I took the redundancy. And I was living in another flat, so I just worked hard. But again, they laughed at me in accountancy because coming from electrical, I didn't know a thing about finance or accountancy, and I just got laughed at. But I just clung to the promises in the Bible, and the Bible says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. By the end of the first year, I was like, one of the most, if you like, knowledgeable in the class. And it got to a stage, by the time I got to the 3rd year, I gotten a job in accountancy and stuff, but I used to get to college late because of just the late hours I work. So I'd get in class an hour late, and I remember I'd be so discouraged. I just think like I've lost an hour, but I would buck up. I'd get into it, and I'd finished half an hour before the rest and get it all right. And the teacher would laugh at the other members of the class and say, how do you let this man come in an hour late and finish half an hour early and stuff? But again, God put a certain amount of wisdom in me, and just real hard work. So
Okay.
did that.
Now, when here you are, you're 19. You haven't got loads of life experience at 19. You're mini-cabbing, which you're seeing as a sustainable way to make money on your own terms. So, you appreciate self-employment in a sense. You're doing electrical work because this is what's been spoken into your life. But you're not satisfied.
No.
In terms of how you are feeling, where you were at mentally, now we know about mental health, but in terms of where you're at, you're going through the rain. That was your going through the rain moment. How did you feel? What were your conversations with God like, honestly?
Well, I think when I think of the most difficult parts was to make any money at minicabbing back then. I'd have to minicab 6 days a week, and even on Sabbath afternoon after sunset, I couldn't even afford to go home because I'd lose money. So I'd change out of my church suit in the back of a car and put on the rougher clothes. I had to look almost like a gangster so I don't get beaten up. So I had to change into rough clothes. And in fact, the word out on the street in Balham was that I was the top drug dealer in the area because I wore a shell suit and I had a mobile phone, and that was the sort of like a currency that drug dealers had, and I drove a BMW.
Wow.
But they didn't realize I'm trying to look tough because I'm a cab driver, but they thought I was the number one drug dealer in the area.
Wow.
That came back to me. But yeah, I used to cry out to God and say, look, the hours I'm having to work, and when my friends were going to concerts and stuff, I'm working. I'd start Sunday morning at about 9 a.m. and work till 2 a.m. Monday morning, and then while I was working at BT, I'd then go to work at BT. So I'd get like 4 hours sleep and go to work, and I'd stand up in a customer premises while they showed me where they want me to run the wires, and I'd fall asleep standing up against a wall. Didn't plan to, but so tired,
Exhaustion.
Yeah, so I went through really tough
So what are you
times.
saying to God? What are you saying to God? Because your faith has always been there. Here's you're returning your tithes, you're keeping the Sabbath. But what is your conversation with God like? I mean, other people are partying their teenage years away, but you don't want that. How do you feel?
Well, at that point I was 25, so that was around it. But it was, it's from 19 to 25, all of that. But yeah, how much longer is this going to last? But I dug my way out of it. I bought the first apartment, so that's where things started to look up, started to pay off, and then change.
So was that how your buy-to-let business started? Is that do you still own that flat? What happened?
No, what happened with that? And it just shows how the devil comes in and just messes things up. I had it for 5 years, from 25 to 30, rented it out successfully. Then a lady bought the downstairs flat, and she started a load of legal problems on me. And I didn't have the finances to fight her, and I went for what they call a voluntary repossession. So before the bank come and take it from me, I posted the keys to them, and I felt that was the end of my financial life, because once you got a repossession. And I remember my sister saying to me, "No, Norman, that's not the end." My uncle even said to me, "In America, so many people go bankrupt 2-3 times and still rebound." But I thought that was the end of my life. But within 3 years, my new work as an accountant started to pick up, because I started on 6,000 a year as an accountant.
6,000 a year. Was that legal?
It was back then, because there wasn't any minimum wage. Yeah, but I was earning 6,000 a year.
How did you eat on 6,000? What was the price of milk then? What, 2p?
Well, I can't remember, but this is why I'm saying that the redundancy money from telecom helped to sustain me through that.
Okay. Because you couldn't truly have survived.
No.
That's like working for Scrooge.
Yeah, and then the other thing I'd like to say as well is, where I was ridiculed left, right, and centre for returning tithe on my redundancy money, the final amount, which amounted to some 15%, I kept back. I never touched that, and eventually that became the deposit for my first buy-to-let.
Wow.
For my first buy-to-let after I lost the
first
flat.
property.
And I never bought flats again. I bought houses. So I bought a house, and so that in spite of paying the tithe or returning tithe, I was still left with enough to buy a buy-to-let that I kept for 20 years. Just kept multiplying it in money,
Wow, that's fantastic. And I know personally from knowing you, I remember when the pandemic hit, one of the first things you posted on social media was, don't forget to pay your tithe, everyone.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, God has always been faithful.
Yeah.
And I thought, everybody's running around searching for toilet paper, and Norman is posting on social media, don't forget to pay your tithe.
Yeah,
so this is why, because you know.
Because what I don't understand is the Bible makes it clear, if you return a faithful tithe, God will open the windows and pour out a blessing that you won't have room to receive. He doesn't say, oh, well, you might be successful, you might, you know, he's guaranteeing you that if you return a faithful tithe. I can tell you, in 30 years of working in accountancy, I have never been able to cope with the amount of work that I've got.
Wow.
At one point, I had 5 accountants working for me. Even to this day, I'm still struggling to cope with the amount of work I've got. It's simply because, you know, return a tithe, do the best I can.
So you're saying God's promises are real?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
So we've gotten to the point where you've gone through some real tough times. You've worked solidly and you've continued to work your way up. You've bought your house, you've gone on to buy more properties. Where have you gone from there? So you've qualified as an accountant, and you could have settled for that. I mean, I know many accountants, and if I'm honest, I don't know as many accountants who are as successful as you. How did you break away? What's your breakaway moment where, you know, yes, you're an accountant, but you've decided you're not going to be the type of accountant who is going to be begging bread on the street, basically?
Okay, well, I was lucky that I got into film and television, and I'm behind a lot of the shows on television. But earlier in my career, again with in fact, I almost had a Joseph moment, because I used to work with some other accountants. We all used to work for a company, and I was a junior, and they used to boss me around and treat me not so nice and so forth. Well, not intentionally, but they shout at me and go on and whatever. But I always did the evening classes, and eventually when we all went our separate ways, it got to a point where I was turning down so much work. One by one, I phoned them all up sort of 5 years later and offered them more money than they were earning to come and work for me.
Wow. And
basically I had 5 of them working for me, and it did cause problems because 1 or 2 of them were resentful that they used to be my boss and they're now working for me. But I provided, you know, and as I said, in the church I've employed many people and put them into the BBC and places like that, you know, giving them pull strings and giving them into jobs and so forth. So but that was the adversity that, you know, I had to
come through.
Yeah.
And if you were going to say to somebody, what's an inspirational thought you would share to somebody who right now is going through the rain? You know, they don't think they're going to manage. They feel they've reached the end and they can't be more. Everybody's saying you can't be more. This is it. Settle. You know, you have enough. But inside of them, there's a yearning and there's a deeper desire to be more. What would you say to that person?
Well, I'd say, you know, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Always put God first. So for me, you know, that always came first. Even with the exams, when the exams were on Friday, I would refuse to take the exam. Even when it was just 15 minutes into sunset, I was not going to go even 1 minute into sunset. So I'd wait a whole 6 months for the exam to come around in June to pass it and whatever. So, you know, you've got to be faithful to God in terms of your tithe, and, you know, the things I tried, you know, musically I do stuff in the church and so forth, and I've had to sacrifice. So one correction I need to make, I'm not a fully qualified accountant, I'm part qualified, which makes it even more incredible.
What?
That,
you're partly qualified?
I had to make the decision between getting all of my qualifications or the work I do in the church, and I chose God and the work there, and He's made me, you know, earn 3 times more than what I even dreamed of earning. Or in spite of not being fully qualified. So I always put the church work first, and, you know, my allegiance to God first. And just reading the Bible every day, studying, it gives you knowledge. In spite of not being fully qualified, it gives me an intellect and a knowledge above many other people I work with. They were shocked at my understanding of the finance finance game, you know.
Wow. That honestly, that is even more impressive to know that's something you've kept under your belt. You're not fully qualified,
no.
Yet
It's a
here
job.
you are able to employ others and not able to do all the work that you have coming to you. That's fantastic, and it does show that you can make it through the rain from a situation where you're living with somebody by their grace. You're on the brink of homelessness. You've been ridiculed, and you've made it all the way up to be the person doing the finances behind television programs that we know and love.
Yeah.
So that's amazing, and thank you, Norman, so much.
All
for coming.
I can say is all glory to God. If people put God first, that's the main thing. And we're in a time right now where, because of COVID, I actually believe the end is very near. I'd say all of this is all well and good, but the main thing is to make sure that
God is the priority.
Because we don't have much time left here. That's my focus.
Thank you. So there you have it. Norman has let us know that in spite of everything, his success is not his own. He has always put God first, and his life's testimony is that by putting God first, God has never let him down, and he has never been down and out again as a result of putting God first. So as you are struggling through the rain, Norman's story today is to teach us that put God first, and everything else will fall into place. Thank you again, Norman, for doing this with us.
Okay.
At this time, we're here with Keith Baldo. That name might sound familiar to some of you. This is Keith Baldo, not Junior, the second, not the second,
no,
just
Keith,
just
the son
Keith,
of Keith Baldo.
just the son of Keith Baldo, our pastor here at Brixton Church. Keith is the head of global productions for Swift International Payments and has been a trustee member of Hannah's Orphanage, which does some work in East Africa.
Yes, so we support orphanages in East Africa.
Yes, and we're here to speak to Keith because with these acclamations, Keith was only able to attain his GCSEs at the age of 27 and graduated from university at age 30. So he is the epitome of it's never too late. Keith, tell us, how did this happen? How did you manage to do your GCSEs at the age of 27?
So I mean, there's a lot to dive into. Like you say, it's never too late. I grew up in the Caribbean. I did my high school in the Caribbean, where I did the equivalent of GCSEs, which is CXCs, and I had those grades. And when I moved to the UK, eventually when I did apply to university, the university I applied to said they didn't accept CXCs, and I had to do some GCSE math and English exams. So I did that at 27, 26 going on 27. It was quite interesting sitting down in a class full of I don't know what, they were
teenagers.
Probably 14, 15 year old. Definitely had some looks because I came in from work and I sat the exams and then I went back to work.
Okay.
But that's how I ended up doing GCSEs at 27.
At 27.
Yeah.
Well, your story is very interesting because as a young man, when other 14 and 15-year-olds were just, I suppose, playing football and thinking about what they're going to do, you were also a footballer, I believe.
I played.
But your career was stopped. What happened?
So I played a lot of football in high school, and I loved football at the time when I was able to play it. And then when I was 15, going on 16, I was diagnosed with cancer. So this is cancer of the right leg, bone cancer in the right leg. And it was as a result of an injury I had in my younger years. And in order to sort of preserve my life and to preserve my leg, it would mean some changes, and one of those things were all physical activity, sporting activity had to be stopped. So
That was the end of the football dream.
That was the end of the career.
The career.
Yeah.
Oh, we missed that opportunity. But now we look at you, we wouldn't know that you had to overcome this at the age of 16. Tell us some more about that. What happened? How did you have to undergo treatment? How did it affect your studies? I mean, that's a serious diagnosis at such a young age.
Yeah, so, I mean, cancer the experience differs per individual. For me, like you said, it was bone cancer due to an injury in my youth. And once diagnosed, it had to be treated quite quickly due to how aggressive it was.
Okay.
Part of the treatment was, of course, chemotherapy. And then another stage of that treatment was actually replacing the bones in my right leg with a titanium version, so full prosthetic implant in the right leg. So that's sort of in summary what happened. In terms of the actual experience, for me, I don't think it was too bad.
Okay.
So you often hear about some of the more horrific side effects. Some of my side effects were the going bald, losing hair, which happened on a Saturday. I don't know if my mom can remember that, but it all happened in one go.
Oh.
Yeah, I pulled it out once I saw it starting going. The weight loss, sorry. And I think those were the only sort of two real common side effects. One of the more uncommon side effects I had was amnesia.
Wow.
So one morning I woke up, I didn't know I didn't know my name, I didn't know who my mother was, and this was actually just around the time I was sitting my exams as well. So I can honestly say that God sat those exams, not that I did, and yeah, that was quite an interesting experience, having to sort of be treated with therapy options that would help you recover your memory. Mm-hmm. There were a couple incidents that happened at the hospital, which apparently I was involved with, which I had no recollection of. And sort of the comeback from that, which I think was quite interesting. And then obviously doing exams and the pressure of exams, but getting reasonably good results out of it.
I can't believe you were able to even sit your exams with all of that going on.
Yeah, so I sat my CXCs in hospital connected to my chemotherapy drip stand.
Wow.
And yeah, I literally sat it in the hospital.
So when you were going through that, that was your going through the rain moment. Most people watching this will be sitting there thinking, you were able to you have such a positive attitude about this. At that time, how did you feel going through the rain?
So I think at that time, for me, the biggest crush, I think, or the biggest blow at the time was more the fact that I could no longer play sports or compete, or I had questions about whether I'd be able to walk properly again or run, or simple things that you don't think is impacted suddenly becomes undoable. You're no longer allowed to, whether it's cricket, you can't jog, you can't run, you're banned from doing these things, because if you do them, it means that you could probably be on crutches for another 2-3 years of your life.
Wow.
And so I think that impacted me more then than the actual thought of having cancer or not making it through the treatment.
Because you were 16.
Yeah. And then obviously post-surgery, there was sort of the image of what your leg has become like. After surgery, I mean, it looks different, right? Mm-hmm. They strip the bone out, they strip the muscle out. It's visually different. So I think at the time, that would have been the true rain moment where there was maybe possibly a self-esteem impact or something like that.
Because as a teenager,
yeah,
your focus is on body image. We're all conscious as we go through different things, but for you, you're going through a real change.
Yeah.
So did that affect your mental health in any way?
So at the time, I don't think I felt like it did. Mm-hmm. And now we have such an elaborate definition around mental health. I guess it probably checks a couple of the boxes. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like it affected my mental health. I think it definitely affected my self-image, but it happens to everyone, right?
Yes.
Whether it's from surgery or whatever, any form of sort of disfiguring tends to affect your self-image. I don't feel like in that moment at that time it affected me, but it took some time, and I think in the years after treatment, there was definitely some impact.
So now you've got a titanium leg.
Titanium bones.
Titanium bones. So you're not able to do the things you loved, and if you played football, that means you loved running and you loved exercise. Yeah. So did you throw yourself into your work? Did you? No. What happened?
Never thrown myself into work.
What happened next? How did you get from there? You know, has your leg? How did you grow? All of these questions come to mind because you were 16. You were still growing. You're quite tall now. How tall are you now?
6'4".
You're 6'4". So. How was it? Did you have anything happen to your leg? Have you ever had an injury? Or were you able to just follow the doctor's orders from 16 all the way up and you've never had anything like that?
No, so I was lucky enough to break this unbreakable titanium bones on my birthday. I think it was my 22nd or 23rd birthday. I can't remember which one. So yeah, I broke it on the night before my birthday, actually. So I followed the doctor's orders, but accidents happen, and I managed to break it and end up back in hospital and back on crutches for a significant amount of time. But actually, that was quite an interesting period in life. So this was, like I said, I think 22 or 23. I can't remember which one exactly. Or probably a couple years later. I was working full time and thinking about what do I do next with life. Not that I was unhappy, but everybody wants to progress in life some way, somehow. And at the time, I hadn't gone to university as yet because after chemotherapy, I kind of just spent some years recovering. Mentally, there was like a bit of recovery to be done. I started working, and I was thinking, what do I do next? And I'd actually applied to university and got rejected from the university simply for the fact that I didn't have the necessary qualifications. So they wanted me to have GCSEs and some English.
And these are the qualifications you had attained while hooked up to your chemo.
Yeah.
And now you're being told, we're sorry, we don't accept this that you've worked so hard for. What was your relationship with God? What was your conversation with God like in that moment?
So it was quite interesting. Like I'm one of those ones that pray that I don't know where I'm meant to go, just open the right door and close all the others. Like I'm not smart enough to figure it out myself. And the rejection wasn't that your grades weren't good enough. We just don't recognize the CXCs. That's from the Caribbean. We don't touch that. So I was in a bit of a quandary because I really wanted to go to that specific university. There's nowhere else I wanted to go. There were a couple of courses I wanted to do or I was interested in. I didn't want to do anything else. So what seemed to be the option at the time was to do a diploma in business to get the equivalent of like an A-level qualification and also to sit my GCSEs. But working full-time, I didn't know how I'd get that done. And then I broke my leg and then I had 3 days off a week to do rehabilitation and physiotherapy and a lot of time to study. So I ended up, whilst rehabilitating, doing my GCSEs and doing a diploma in business and getting grades that were good enough to then enter into university.
So that unbreakable broken leg moment was the redirection that helped you to actually attain the goals you wanted to get. So in that time, you didn't lay in bed feeling sorry for yourself and thinking, oh, now I have to go through rehab. You used that as an opportunity to propel yourself forward and say, I can use this moment to achieve my goals. Yeah. I think that's very inspirational because so many times, and we want the viewers to take this away, that so many times things happen to us and we're so caught up in the moment. And here you are as an example of somebody who at 16, you were undergoing treatment for cancer. Your dreams at that time, because you wanted to pursue sport, those have gone, but you didn't let it stop you. In everything that you're saying, I can't see a moment where you're saying you were hopeless. It seems like you've just been able to understand that you're okay. How have you done that?
So I think talking now, it's easy to talk because you're looking in retrospect, right? You can see how all the points connect to where you are today. But also in the moment, I think quite often, and for a lot of people it might be the same case, you're distracted by what you're going through to the point where sometimes you don't have the opportunity to feel hopeless. You're kind of just focused on what do I do next? Or at least that was my situation. There was a lot of questioning in terms of what do I do next? So I wouldn't say it was a state of hopelessness, but I was definitely clueless. Probably still clueless. But I haven't sort of had a clear path and known, well, okay, this is what I do. I go to school, I go to college, I go to university, this is what I want to become. And then also thrown in with chemotherapy and surgery and recovery and rehabilitation and all that sort of stuff. I've never actually known where does this path go. So there was a lot of cluelessness, and that there was a lot of sort of praying, just saying like, what do I do next? How does it work? Sometimes you want to be able to see the future. You want to know in 3 years' time, this is what I'm going to do. And I've never had that kind of visibility.
Okay.
It's always sort of just evolved. So that was more my experience, cluelessness, but a lot of praying. Like
A lot of praying.
I didn't have much people to sort of talk to and sit down and figure it out with, but I love praying.
So you've told us about having cancer at 16, attaining your GCSEs. So that's it. You've made it through the rain. The showers are gone. You're now at college. You must have had a fantastic time at college.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great time at college. However, like I mentioned, I was doing college whilst recovering. So I was actually working 2 days a week and going to college 3 days a week on crutches.
Wow.
I did my business diploma. But the actual experience at college was, there was some rainy moments, so to speak. So I mentioned that one of the things I wanted to do, I really wanted to go to university. And there was a specific university I wanted to go to. And that was my only goal, to go to that university. So at college...
Why? Did they, you know, like the Oxbridge of this world, did it have a high acclamation, or was it the only place you could do this qualification?
Yeah, it was one of the sort of better regarded business schools in Europe and globally.
Okay.
And I felt that at the time that I wanted to sort of pursue a career in investment banking, and it was probably one of the best places I could have gone to bolster that effort.
So back to how they were treating you.
So yeah, so at college, I mean, for people who are unfamiliar with the process, when you're either doing your A-levels or you're at college, what you would do is you would fill out a form which are your 5 choices of universities that you'd like to go to. And I believe it was called a UCAS form at the time. And then what happens is your school or your college, they would give some information on your predicted grades to give the university an idea of sort of how you're performing as a student. And the university would make an offer. So the university would say, well, okay, based on the fact that this person seems to be part of the scope of students that we're interested in, if you get 3 A's at A level or whatever the offer is. So I was filling out my UCAS form, and like I said, I wanted to go to one university, so I put it at the top, and the rest of the options, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're all the same, blank. That obviously wasn't seen as the best strategy by the director of my program at college. And I don't know if that's the start of where our relationship started breaking down, because she advised me to probably look elsewhere, and I told her, no, this is it, this is where I'm going. But then when it came to giving my predictive grade, she understood what the sort of acceptance level of my university was, and she pitched it just under the acceptance level. So
wow.
She predicted, I believe I was on course to get full distinction. I sat 60 credit modules, and I was going to get all distinctions. And she pitched me at, I think it was like 50% distinctions, 50% merit. And her argument was logical. It was, we don't know, so I can't say.
Wow.
And there was a lot of sort of back and forth. But based on that, the university decided not to give me an offer. So I mentioned before that I applied to them. They said, we don't accept CXCs. I applied to them again, saying, hey, now I'm doing GCSEs and a diploma. They said, well, your grades aren't good enough, or your predicted grades aren't good enough. So I guess that would be the rainy moment where I've now invested a lot of time and effort. I'm 27 years old.
Recovering,
and they've just said no for a second time. And I remember praying vividly, like a prayer, and sort of telling God I need a sign. So I gave him a series of events that quite possibly couldn't happen. I said, if this happens now, I know that I'm on the right path. And no bit of a lie, it happened. I was a little bit scared. I was like, oh, okay, baby.
okay, God.
That was enough in that moment to make me think, okay, God's with me. But I was still in that rainy moment, as in, okay, God's with me, but I've gotten a no. So there was a lot of back and forth. And I remember speaking to my mom, and I decided to call up the university and tell them, listen, I will be attending university.
Hey.
And we're going to figure this out. And I remember asking in the call if I can, what would be the offer, what would be the potential offer if I can. Mm-hmm. And they gave me what an offer would look like. And I remember going back to sort of the head of the course, and it literally had to be a fight to get her to change that, explaining to her that based on what you've predicted, I have no shot at getting in. And she kept going, oh, well, this, we don't know. But yeah, eventually a lot of prayer, a lot of back and forth, and she changed it, and I got my offer, and I made it to university.
Wow.
Which for me was a big thing, coming from a point of being rejected twice. Having someone who I don't want to dive into all the reasons she may have said no, or maybe sort of manufactured my grades to look like
you weren't going to do this.
And I ended up achieving all 60 distinctions. So
you got the distinction.
I actually ended up achieving it. So it was quite an interesting experience. But at that time, I remember thinking, okay, God's with me, but the answer is still no. Like,
this is impossible.
Maybe I shouldn't have asked for a sign. Maybe I should have asked for yes. But yeah, you keep plodding, you keep pushing on, and yeah, let me change that.
Thank you. So, if you were to give one sentence to somebody right now who's going through something, and they say, you know, look at this guy, he's so confident, and you're saying it wasn't always like this. There were moments when I sat there clueless saying, God, I need some help. What would you say to them? What would be something you could share with them to say, I'll give you this bit of advice?
I'll challenge them to wait. I don't know what everyone's experience is, but mine is definitely confidence in retrospect. I can look back now and go, oh yeah, that makes sense. You can't see into the future, and you don't realize how it's all going to link up. So I challenge them to wait. I know it's probably not the grandiose sort of advice you're expecting, but just wait.
Wait on the Lord.
Wait.
Wait on the Lord. He will provide a way, and time does. From my experience, it does heal, and it does help us to see things differently.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know what I as much as I'm taken back by your cancer experience and going through amnesia at that young age, it's impressive that you were able to continue forward. And now, you know, when we talk about, when people could say, introduce you with all these acclamations, it's important for us to understand that the journey is never just simple. There are moments when we are in the rain and we don't know how we're going to make it through. And so thank you so much for coming and sharing with us your story so that we can be inspired to know that it's never too late, because you went to university
I started at 27.
At 27. and finished at 30.
And interestingly, at the time, there were 2 people there who were older than me.
Okay.
So I thought I'd be the oldest.
But you weren't.
And it turned out, no, there was an African gentleman who was 33, I believe, at the time. And then there was a brother from Eastern Europe who was 36.
Wow.
And it was all interesting to see how similar their situation was to mine. But this was their opportunity, and they were ready to start over fresh and take it and
because with COVID having hit this year, a lot of young people feel their lives are over. They feel, I didn't even get GCSEs properly. Yeah. I worked so hard. I didn't get what I expected. I expected to go to university, leave home, socialize. I spent a year in my dormitory watching my lectures on the internet. And what I'm getting from what you're saying is that it's okay.
It's definitely okay. I think a lot of people put themselves under a lot of undue pressure, and they may see failure as quite negative. And probably one of the few things that I can say for myself is that I've never seen failure as negative. You've grown up in the Caribbean, you know that there's quite a lot of negative energy focused on people who don't pass their exams, yes. Or you have to resit if you didn't prepare for your exams, you're going to fail. It is what it is. You can do it another time. There's so many different ways you can get to what you want to do. And everyone's path isn't going to be the same. And hey, you fail now, like, as long as you're alive, you can try again. It's as simple as that. Put no undue pressure on yourself. Failure it should never ever be looked at in a negative light. As long as you're alive, just keep forging forward. It might be a small step, it might be a big step. You don't even need to know it's going to work out. Just keep pushing forward. It works out.
Thank you. See, that you said I wanted something, and you said time.
It's not that grandiose.
But that was that was the grandiose end, isn't it? That you're saying, keep going, and thank you. Thank you for being such a good example at such a young age, because you're not an old man now, but it seems like you've had a life of experience, really filled with experiences, and you forged forward. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us of how you've come through the rain. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I see in me will be stripped away by the power of your love. Hold me close, let your love surround me.
welcome back. Now we have with us our very own Elder Robinson, Elder Lane Robinson. Elder Lane Robinson is the head of social policy development at the Commonwealth Secretariat, which I'm not going to lie, Elder Lane, sounds very, very fancy. That's a very nice title to have. How did you know, did you envision yourself at the Commonwealth Secretariat as a young man running around, you know, playing fireman and policeman? What did you think?
I didn't grow up thinking about life as what you'd like to be, especially and doing policy work. It's something that you learn when you go to school. You realize that there's an option. You can do creative work in policy work. So you can help people think about how do you fix social or other problems. So when I was growing up, my idea was I want to do something that helps.
Okay.
That just helps, wherever that is. It could be church, it could be home. I always found myself thinking, how can I find the answer to help here? So that kind of led me to doing things in my life that try to help. However, and this is one of them, so I find myself doing more and more things that, in this case, policy work is about how do you help solve these big problems, we call them wicked problems that nobody can fix. Unemployment, you know. How do you solve the fact that, you know, there's so much sickness and death? How do you work with what we have as human beings to solve them? And so I studied things that would help me to do that, economics, politics, sociology, and that led me into what I didn't think is even a career, you know, where you help governments figure out what to do.
Yes.
I don't know if that's a job, but that's what we do now. We help governments figure out what to do, and that means sitting with them, advising them, counseling them, giving them examples of what is working. So that's what it is, really.
Wow, that is a fantastic role, and I'm sure many of us don't fully understand that even exists. But for young people, because as a young man, you're saying you didn't know, you weren't sure. So for young people who are feeling a little hopeless and saying, well, you know, I don't know what I'm going to be. You're basically saying you don't have to figure it all out.
No, you don't need. It's good if you have it all figured out, and then for the person who has it all figured out, that calling that you have is brilliant. For many others, it's trying different things or knowing what you like doing and pursuing it as best as you can. But it's never going to be one thing. Who just does one thing?
That's true.
You do lots of things with your life. Some you do for pay, some you do for fun. So it's doing all of that and enjoying it. I think it's more of that than anything else. So I found that I like doing many different things. You know, I would love to do art. I'd love to do acting. I'd love, you know, whatever comes my way, I'll grab it. I'll do it if it's even for a little time. But do it. Do what you love doing. Some of it you'll get paid for. That's a bonus. If you get paid to do something that you like doing, that's also great.
Okay. So we're looking at moments when we've come through the rain.
Yeah.
We've had difficulties. And everybody sees the rainstorm differently. I know personally that Elder Lane sees the rain differently than we do. And that's not a bad thing. How do you view the rainstorm moments of life?
I understand rain to be a blessing. That's the whole concept. I think, you know, so blessings come in different ways. Sometimes it's raining and it's still sunny. Rain doesn't always come with the clouds and it's a bad thing. So for me, when I said the rain, I was like, but rain, it's a good thing. It's a blessing. And that's how I think everybody's interpreting it. So it seems as if it's a bad thing, but it's only because you're looking at it from one perspective, when actually things have multiple perspectives. There's not one perspective to see life. So if you're looking at it from one perspective, you can say it's a low, but actually, if you're looking at it from the other perspective, it's a blessing. And that's how I understand it. So my experience with the rain, if you will, the blessing, has been in and around many things, but one of them is my journey with mathematics, which I think probably helps to encapsulate the story a little bit. So I was never, I guess most people, starting in a rural context, we don't have all the facilities in science and mathematics and so on. You wouldn't find the best chemistry and whatever setting where I live. You know, other things are there, but not that. It's yam and cocoa and so, but not math. Yeah, but not that. But so we never had the best of the facilities. So I didn't go for that. But math was there. You had to do it. And you know, most people didn't do very well in math. To do very well, you had to pay for extra classes. So I was told my teacher, if you don't pay and come to Saturday classes, you won't do it. And I said, really? So I that was if there's a challenge for me to say, well, can I change that? And I really worked hard, did all of what I had to do, study hard, got all the books, really went at it and changed what that teacher said of me, that you couldn't do it.
Were you an Adventist?
I was an Adventist, yeah. So, but I always believed that God, that wouldn't work, you know, it wouldn't work, but that was the only way He said it was the only way. He was from another country, another faith, another religion, actually. So he said it couldn't work any other way. But for me, I thought, no, God is there. So I just studied, prayed, went to the exam. I saw all this stuff that I just think God just gave me them back, what I had studied exactly. And I came up with a top grade.
Wow.
Wasn't a great math student, so I remember it was my weakest area,
Yes.
and then got the best grade. But that wasn't the story. So the story is, so how does God take that from where it is? So I took that. I ended up going to university, from a rural context again. So I did economics. It's a lot of math in economics, a lot of math. I still pursued it because I think, well, God, why not? Why not do it? I did the math, I did it. God said, do some economics. I left college studying it, and then went on to university. Now, for a rural person, again, going to, we didn't fully understand what the university thing is. My family, nobody is really going there. We did, at best, the community colleges, but going to a university. So I was one of the first ones in my family doing that. Okay. And then going there, I remember with my father, we went to the wrong university completely. So we were supposed to go to, one, and he carried me to the other one. And I said, but Daddy, that's not the one. And he said, but it's university. It's there, university written on the wall. I said, but it's not that one. So we didn't know where the university was. We didn't know where it was. And it was very close, though. It was across the road, but we didn't know that it was. Anyway, so we ended up going, and then, going there, we didn't have the money to go. So it was a problem as well. I had to go and beg money. I remember going to this man and saying, please, we beg you, lend me some money so I could go. But that journey continued, went there, whatever. God helped us, God blessed us, did the math. Then left university, did the degree in economics as well. Left there, and then didn't have a job. I guess rain, didn't have the job again. But again, it's not a bad thing. Didn't have a job for a year, but because I chose to go back to the rural community to say, let's see what life could be like there. Didn't stay in town or university, because we're country. Country is in me, right? Went back there, there was no work for a year.
Okay.
But during that
just
year,
finished university.
just finished university.
And that should have got you a job.
Should have gotten a
that
job.
was the adage.
Yeah.
Get the degree and the jobs come pouring in.
And I did well at university, made connections, but because I went back, I chose to go back home. But again, is it a rain or is it a blessing? I went back home, and I can't tell you how many things I did in that 1 year.
Okay.
When you should have been sad, and I did apply, but I ended up first time I ended up doing being a Bible worker.
Oh wow.
Working in campaigns, being a singing evangelist.
You sing?
being a singing evangelist.
You sing? We don't know you as a singer here.
No, actually that's a whole other life. I did a singing group. We have recordings. We went on the radio. We opened shows. That's a whole other story.
I am surprised.
But during that year, when it was supposed to be the dark year, connecting with God, doing all this Bible work, doing Sabbath school, leading Sabbath school work, and then the opportunity came to teach. And teach what? Mathematics.
Oh wow!
At an Adventist school, and I took the chance, and they took me in, and I had to teach all. Not piece of the curriculum, the whole curriculum.
Oh.
From year 1, from first form to 5, all of them, from year 7 to 11, all of them. And I just, again, is the rain, is it difficult? Yeah, I had to move from home, go to even a back, more rural part of Jamaica, which had no running water, had no, that's a whole other. but is it a rain? Is it a difficult moment? And what I found was that, no, actually, it was a blessing. All of that experience, I remember going to work some days in my, light shade pants, and by the time I got to work, up to my knees was muddy. So you had to take off your shoes, and it was because there's no road where we used to live. There's no road. Very rural. Very rural. So but then I taught mathematics for 5 years, teaching every grade, while it's an Adventist school, so you're preaching and teaching to the children every day, learning about God, and I am learning math. Then they gave me this big thing of teaching evening school, so the adults were coming in as well. So
you're teaching
everybody, all the ages from you. And then, but the interesting thing is, I'm teaching the adults, and I said, teach them 2 evenings a week, and they pay you. And I end up teaching them 4 evenings a week. Wow. And then I stopped charging them because the people couldn't really afford. So they started teaching them just math. And sometimes we're supposed to spend an hour. I spend 4 hours every day after school teaching and just helping them to learn. And you could see people learning. For the people who are saying to me, I've done math my whole life and I've never seen it done this way. But remember, when I was I had to do it myself, to teach myself how to understand it, so that now I understood it. I was telling them, and I would teach them from 1 + 1. How do you get 1? From there I started them, and then they didn't pass the exams, but they learned mathematics, which I thought was a beauty. But the beautiful thing is, on that journey, which is the rain, the low moment, and not in my job or whatever, not in head of social policy, just teaching math, all the grades,
In
and
a rural setting.
and being creative about it and doing the best we can do. We had math Olympics for the students. A day when no classes, just math. We played game. So you pour your whole self into something, whatever it is, or whatever rain bad it is. But the thing is, after teaching those adult students for many years, then the journey continues. I'm living my life, I'm getting married now.
Okay.
And then we paid for the wedding and everything and paid for the reception, lots of money. And then there was an error in the accounting.
Oh.
Okay, somebody from the hotel called me and said, there's a massive error here, you've overpaid,
That's
and we need to give you back.
fantastic news.
So the person who made that discovery is one of my math students,
Wow.
who I had taught in that rain moment, who now, many, many years after, is now an accountant.
Wow.
Who is now checking the books of my record. I don't know. And I discovered that I was overpaid by a couple thousand, more than about $28,000, and made that discovery. That person didn't pass, but because I had done what I could, in my rain moment, that person learned something, and then it came back to benefit me. So that you see that simple journey, what you think is a bad moment, you help somebody, you do your best you can do with a very difficult thing for yourself, but then you've grown that idea, you've taken it, and now I use it. I use math in what I do. This last week, we launched a global product, a youth development index, a resource that teaches people, it measures how the whole world is doing on youth development. And that's a lot of calculation, a lot of math. It's the journey. I'm still in that journey of how do I use this thing that I was told not good enough to help now 180 plus countries to figure out how they can help their young people. Millions of people, you see. So again, was it a rain moment that the teacher said that thing?
You're not going to.
You're
They
not
said
going
you're
to.
not going to.
It was what I needed to hear to make me do what I had to do. I mean, so that's why I'm saying or when we didn't know where to find the university, it was okay. It made you know if I didn't even know that, what do I need to do now that is different from what you did? So I think life is that unfolding of God is bringing to you, or life is bringing to you, what you need to do to inspire you to try something, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be about work and success and all of that.
During your journey, and I absolutely love your math journey, during your journey, you've finished university and you've gone deep rural. What were your family saying? What were people around you saying? And were they encouraging you? Were they lifting you up in the same way? Had they thought, hang on a second, this is not what we expected from you. We sent you all the way to university. How did people react to this move? Because I think people always assume, even now in 2021, when a degree doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a job in that field, that you get a degree, that's it. The money just flows through.
Yeah. People. I didn't, because I wasn't just doing that. So I was doing tons of other things at the same time. Okay. So people weren't seeing me so I was being seen as a math teacher to a bunch of people over there in a whole adult education institute. But I was also leading Sabbath school work.
Okay.
So I was, president of Sabbath School Council, going to every small part of the country, helping Sabbath schools to grow. I was also doing Bible work in campaigns. So people weren't seeing you as, the one. No, and nobody is. You're several things all at the same time. But the question is, are you doing the best you can do with all of those other things? And so when they see me at doing Bible work, again, I'm doing all the best I can do with that. I'm helping people to know God. And every one of those has its own journey. I remember we're doing Bible work, and then one at a time we went to the community, and two parts of the community were fighting, and they were throwing stones at each other. And me and my other Bible worker were in the middle of the stone throwing, and stones were going over our head and we're jumping. You could really see it. Was that fun? That was absolutely. Looking back, you're saying that's an experience. Who would have that?
Yeah.
But I was in a low moment. I wasn't working, but I was pouring myself into Bible work, and here was I getting fantastic experiences of how to bring two warring parts of a very small community together, who are throwing big rocks at each other, and I'm in the middle. You see?
In England, people don't know what big rocks look like.
Yeah, big this size.
In England, I remember when I first came, somebody said, you know why nobody has broken windows? Because there are no stones.
On the road.
So they don't know what, when you say a big rock, they don't mean a little pebble that we see.
Big stones to hit, to hurt, and to injure.
Wow.
But that was happening. So people are seeing me through that, doing the Bible work, I was doing Sabbath school, and other things. I think what I think for me is, the objective in life is not to be the best in the job.
Yeah.
Or else you're going to, if the job goes, then what are you? You have to be the best of who you are. So what I've always said is, am I a good son to my mother? Am I a good father to my son? Am I a good husband? That's the real thing. Because after that, when everything else goes, okay, I stop being head of social policy. What am I? You see, so I think it's that kind of thing that, so if you're the best son that you can be to your mother, that's the beauty of life. And in that, you're going to have the ups and downs, the raves, but that's fine, that's life, it's just life. But if you make up your mind that I'm going to be the best father or son or
Those
uncle,
are things that
those
you
are
have
things that
control.
you have full control over. I can be the best son to my mother. I can make sure I do what is right because that's who I am. The other things are external to me.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us, Elder Lane. And what a positive message. And it's a positive message because the things that happened, even though Elder Lane is smiling through them and has always smiled through them, they are things that would make another person give up. Another person might say, I'm not good enough, or I'm not going to complete this journey.
Correct.
But here is somebody who is saying to you, it's okay. What we're getting from Elder Lane is, it's okay. We expect it, enjoy it, live through it, and while living through it, continue to give.
Yeah.
Because I can't believe that you can't have been making a lot of money. You can't have, but yet, here are you using your resources and your time. Time is our most precious resource. And instead of 2 hours, you're having 4
per night.
Per night.
But I think about it, I didn't make the money, but you saw God give it back to you. So
yes.
the same student that every day our man is blown away by it. She then comes back and saves the money years later, no connection. I didn't even know where the hotel, and the person said, but is that Mr. Robinson? And it turned out, yes. And I was in your math class.
Wow.
And then she gives me back a check of, literally in my hand, of the time invested many years ago.
And so it shows us really that God is in for the long journey.
Long journey.
Sometimes we can only see this part. But you're telling a story that over years came to fruition. So, if you were to tell somebody right now, and we do this with everyone, they're going through their rain moment, and they are down, and they're out, and they haven't got your positive, upbeat outlook right now because they're struggling. And they might even be struggling with their relationship with God in this. What would be your advice to that person right now?
My advice would be you just have to trust God. Just simply put, you have to trust God. You just have to trust God. Rain moment, non-rain moments, sunshine moments, through all the moments, trust God. That's what we know. Job said it best, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. But blessed be the name of the Lord. It's not so much about whether you have rain moments or sunny moments. It's just life. Enjoy the ride. But you need that person beside you, and I think that person is God. If you trust in Him, He will take you through. Whatever moment, even those sunny moments, you need Him too. It's at those sunny moments, perhaps, when most people lose God. In the rain moments, they tend to gravitate towards God. But when things are going really well, so if you're down and out, it's a journey. You're on a journey. Trust God. That journey will be fine if you put your trust in Him. God will take you through. And you will look back at those moments, rainy, sunny, whatever you call them, and you will see that God was with you, and it's a blessing. So that's the thing.
Thank you very much. Elder Lane, thank you for sharing your story with us.
Sure.
And I'm sure that you'll be hearing from the music director at some point. Thank you, Elder Lane.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back. With us now we have Georgina Benjamin. Georgina Benjamin is a managing director of Veneer Consulting and has recently started a business and is co-founder and CEO of a scale-tech business yet to be named. Welcome, Georgina.
Thank you so much.
This sounds awesome. This is fantastic. How did you become a managing director and you're consulting, so people are coming to you for your services? Did you always know that you were going to be in this position as a child?
Well, it's a marketing consultancy, first of all. So marketing has always been a passion of mine. It's always been something I've been interested in. So when people think when they're a young boy, you're asking you, what do you want to be? I never had an answer for what I wanted to be. I just knew what I wanted to work in.
Okay.
And the field I wanted to explore more, and that was marketing. So we advised lots of different companies on their marketing strategies, their marketing ideas, branding, all that kind of thing, typically in the business-to-business space.
Okay.
So not necessarily how to sell popcorn, but how to sell like a business service worth $1,000. So it's a bit different. But yeah, it's always been an interest of mine, and I know there's no marketing class at secondary school, but one of my choir directors, I was in a choir at secondary school, when we left in year 13, she bought me a book on marketing, and I expressly, I didn't think, told her I was interested in it, but she clearly could see and she knew it was a passion of mine. Just always been interesting to me how people, or groups of people, teams within companies or branding or marketing agencies can sit down around a table like this one and then decide, okay, we want to sell this product in this way, and then us as humans go ahead and take the action and buy that product. And that's always been amazing to me. And so yeah, marketing's always been a real interest of mine and something I can kind of do even if I wasn't getting paid. You know, people say, what do you do if you're getting paid? Yeah, I just always...
You still do marketing.
It's super interesting. It's a social science. It's not, just a numbers type thing. There's emotion involved, and I've always found that intriguing.
I know nothing about marketing, I can admit that. But I was intrigued once. I saw something where supermarkets know when they're going to sell more umbrellas on a certain day, and the person behind it would be someone like you, who kind of knows the ups and downs, when things are going to happen. And
yeah, there's a lot of data. I mean, I know I said it's not just numbers, but there are lots of numbers as an aspect of marketing. So you're going to have supermarkets in this instance looking at trends for umbrella purchases. Do they tend to happen on a weekday or weekend? Of course, it's easy to see when it's going to rain, or predict when it's going to rain, which is obviously awful. Yes, there are certain months I think that do have more rainfall, like April, maybe, or October. I don't work in a school, but they're really looking at numbers and behaviour, and even supermarket layouts. It's all an exact science. Nothing is a mistake in a supermarket.
Wow,
No.
that's awesome. So you knew you wanted to do this. You were fascinated with this part of human behavior. Did you start any business? Is this your first business? Did you start anything else?
Yeah, so the name Consulting is my business. Started it in December 2013, and at first we were running pop-up nail bars, so it's super different from what we're doing now. And so I don't know if you remember this, but in 2012 at the London Olympics there was a really big craze. Lots of fans, athletes for having their nails painted in the colours of their flags, or the colours of maybe athletes that they were supporting from other countries. And I thought, that's really interesting. And that's very interesting. So I thought, hold on, why not have something like this at other sporting events, not just the Olympics? So I really love tennis, and I thought, I'm going to just set up these nail bars at tennis events, and we're going to get all the polish given to us from some kind of brand who wants exposure, and then we'll have tennis players have their nails painted, and they'll go and do press, and they'll talk about it, and it'll be amazing. And it just didn't work out like that at all. Oh, yeah, it was not, well, at the time I thought it was a disaster, but looking back at it now, it was the best disaster that could have happened.
Okay, so you've gone. Was this in the UK that you did this?
Well, we did an event in the UK, so there's a tennis event in Birmingham, which was in June, did that.
We did one in Cincinnati.
Oh my goodness, so actually we've been about 7 years to the week. Wow. It takes place in August, it's just before the US Open.
Wow.
So that was the one that just did not go right.
Okay. So when this didn't go right,
yes,
because we hear people say things didn't go right, they kind of bleed over it. Let's get into that for a moment. What was that like? What was it like? What was your coming through the rain moment? You had a grand idea, which on paper even now sounds like a good idea, but it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to.
Yeah.
What was your conversation with God like in that moment?
There were many moments. It lasted a while. The repercussions, of course, from that. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. So I thought that, we'd set this pop-up nail bar. I got the nail technicians from the local area, lovely girls. I still talk to some in this state, so I'm grateful for that. Made some nice connections. But I knew on day one that I'd made a terrible mistake, because I thought, this nail bar looks wonderful. People are going to be walking through, thousands of people per day. I mean, it's not a lot of people want to come and get their nails done, but it turns out that in the US, where this was, a lot of American women, they come to events, if they're going out, then they're going to be seen, their nails done already, or they're very loyal to their own nail technicians. We had a lot of people say, oh, I couldn't possibly cheat on, Sarah, but she's done nothing else for years. Or, oh, is it free? And when the answer was no, a lot of people said, oh, no, I'm interested.
Okay.
So for anybody watching, you must research your market thoroughly first. You must research the market before you take a leap. Anyway, so I knew that every day I was losing thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds, because remember, it's not in the UK. I had to fly to get there. It was August, expensive. I had to stay in a hotel, expensive. I had to hire the girls as well, the nail technicians. And then the money we outlaid as a company to be there, to rent the space, as it were. So it was really difficult to smile, to show up and be enthusiastic every day. It was really hard. And so I said, God, I want to know what I've done. What's happened? And I went home. And I was devastated. Tens of thousands of pounds was gone in 7 days. 7 days? So it was only a week. It's just gone. Money's gone. There's no money that I made back to kind of offset that. So I was in debt because I had that money given to me as a loan. And so I thought, what am I going to do? And I was, crying. I was, saying to my parents, I should never have done this. I should never have quit my job. To think I could start my own business. What was I thinking? I should have stayed where I was comfortable and safe. So the conversations with God were frequent and fervent. And there were some days I just couldn't even function until I'd heard from God through a song, called Oceans by Hillsong. So going back to your kind of rain analogy or waves analogy, that song actually says in its chorus, Spirit lead me where my trust is without borders, let me walk upon the waters wherever you will call me. And so I would hear the words of that song and say, okay, now I can walk upon this, this choppy sea. I can walk on this water, Lord, because I've heard from you. Have I eaten today or yesterday? Yes. Have I woken up in a bed today? Yes. Fine. Okay. Then I can do my best to try and reverse the situation.
Okay.
So yeah, really very candid conversations with God, and it's not always, now I'm going to go to our prayer closet, I'm going to open the door, now I'm going to kneel on our prayer mat, and we're just going to say things like, the God of Isaac, Jacob. No, so sometimes you're in tears, sometimes you're shouting, but yeah, I definitely had a lot of conversations with God every day during that period. I couldn't function without.
Wow. So, before you went through that rain moment, was your relationship with God like that?
No, I wouldn't say it was.
No.
Because I really had to, sounds weird, rely on him in the truest sense of what that means. Because people say, of course I rely on God. No, but when your life is basically in shape, or how it should be, you kind of forget that it's not you doing that.
Yeah.
It's God doing that.
Yeah.
But when all of that is taken away, that's when you really do realise, okay, it was God, it was you doing that all along. I once heard a sermon, and Lewis Pearson, he said, listen, have you ever taken an alarm clock into a morgue? Yeah, it won't work. The people won't wake up. It's not your alarm clock waking up, it's God waking up. And so to have, that thing happen to me really did highlight the fact that, okay, it wasn't just me making my life work the way I wanted it to. It was God blessed me in that way. And at the time I did not feel blessed, but looking back on it, it was the biggest blessing God could ever have me.
Wow, that's an interesting thing. That's a really powerful statement, because right now there are people who are going through a lot. COVID has put people in a situation they didn't expect to be in. And when I hear you say that, it's like you're saying, it's okay. Right now it doesn't feel like it's going to be okay, but you can survive this, lean on God. That's what I'm hearing coming through what you're saying.
No, it's true. And again, another line from the sermon I've never forgotten, God cares more about your happiness than you do.
Wow.
He does, he really does. And even though things aren't always good, nice, they are good in that they are right for you.
Yeah.
And as long as you have, dedication to your life to God, I would add that as a caveat. Because even though it's not fun at the time, and it doesn't seem to make sense why you're going through that situation, it sounds so cliche, even I love listening to myself, but for me that was really true. Yeah, it really was true. The doors that opened up for me after, having to come home and start from nothing again. I applied for over 70 jobs. Forget business, I'm just going to apply for jobs, any job. And I applied for like over 70. It was hard, really hard, and I didn't get them. And then the company I used to work with for 5 years, I worked with them for 5 whole years. They had an maternity cover role, and they approached me and said, do you want to apply for it? So I did. It was a marketing role for about 9 months, about 9 months. And they made me interview for 2 hours. I thought, you know me, why would you ask me to interview? Okay, interview, but not for 2 hours. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even get that job.
Wow.
Yeah.
After the 2 hour process?
Yes, 2 hours and 5 years of knowing them, I didn't even get that.
That must have been a knock.
It was a knock, and I was in tears. I was just like at rock bottom, which is just not me. You know me, I'm a very confident, heartbeat, positive person. And at that time, I thought, forget it. Like this is the darkest it could ever get. But while saying that, I always knew that I wouldn't stay in that place. I knew it would be awful. I know I wouldn't stay there.
Okay. So how did you come from there? So you applied for all these jobs, nothing's happened. You've gone for a 2-hour interview. I must say that's a very long time to get told no. And you've told them, you're feeling down, you're feeling out, you've prayed, you've had the conversations with God. What was the turning moment?
Yeah.
What happened?
It's weird. So I had a phone call from an agency who had seen my profile, and they rang me and they said, oh, sorry, you get this role. And I was thinking, I don't know, what else is new? And they said, we'll keep your profile on file.
As they say all the time,
And I was thinking, you said so anyway, so you'll be shredding my profile as we speak. And I was like, okay, thanks, bye. So anyway, they called me back the next day. I thought, oh, okay, things actually not going to be. So she said, I'm just looking again. I had a client who approached us because I wanted to still work through my company. I didn't want to necessarily just go back to another job. So I was looking for clients at this time. And they said, it's this company, it's a newspaper, they've got an event coming up in the Middle East, and they want somebody to market it for them. So remember, marketing is my passion, I like it. My degree is in marketing as well. And my first job for 5 years, I didn't tell you, but it was in events. So it was in sales, I had all of those skills. Plus, the tennis events, kind of, the fun events that I've done, I put that on the profile. I mean, they did know it was a successful pattern.
Yes.
I still did it,
yes.
It was still experience. And so I said, the class are interested in, the tennis events, the sporting bits, they're quite interested in all of that. I said, who is it? Who is this client anyway? And they said, it's the New York Times. And I thought, well, obviously, I'm not here. It's too big. The New York Times clearly is the New York. And then she said, no, I want to meet you, not to see you for an interview. And I said, wow. So I put the phone down, and I remember the song by William McDowell, You Are What I Love, was playing, and I heard the words in the chorus that said, and right now in the good times and bad, and I thought, okay, this feels like maybe something is about to change. And so, to answer your question, I don't know what came over me, but God just sat me down and said, listen, you've received a little profile from the client about what they want, 5 lines, nothing more. It wasn't much. Event, Middle East, we need someone to market it, that was all they gave me.
Wow.
And then God just inspired me. He said, write this, write that, write this, do a Gantt chart, which is kind of like a calendar of tasks and how you approach each one and when you do it. And they said they want someone for a couple of months, but tell them you want to be there from now until the event, because they need your marketing expertise from now until the event takes place. So my things are like as a keyword, I'm writing a proposal, I've done this Gantt chart, I went to the meeting, I presented it to the lady, and she just looked at me and she said,
Simply as
can you start? Can you come in and
Can you come on Monday?
yeah. Cool, keep me cool on the outside, on the inside. And my life just changed completely from there.
Yeah.
And so that is why I say it was the best mistake I've ever made. That contract was meant to be 2 months, as I said, and I said, well, no, you've been in here for about 6. I said, no, that's good. So then I spent 6 months, and then they asked me to stay and help me with something else. So I stayed with them for 2 years in total.
So 2 months became 2 years.
Became 2 years, and God's blessings all over it. I went all over the world. I met all kinds of different people who are still my friends to this day, and some lovely business contacts as well. And And I remember writing my first ad for this event that was going to be printed in the paper. And then I opened the paper and I saw it. And I was like, oh my goodness, I wrote that. I wrote that. Yeah. And I thought that a few months ago, I couldn't even get out of bed. You know, and my life changed completely. And from there, I finished with them after 2 years, as I said, and then went on to advise the UK government for 4 months, but that was 4 years. So I finished with them in December last year. And so now the Linear Consulting is advising lots of different international governments. And so just unrecognizable really. But without that big brainstorm, I don't think I would have been in this position I am in today. So every single thing in life, I'm telling you, it really is ordained and happens for a reason.
Wow, thank you. So if I were to say this to you, what if you lost everything tomorrow? If you, unfortunately, business went down, everything's changed, what would your relationship with God be like?
There's something about losing tens of thousands of pounds that really just kind of makes you feel, okay, well, if it happens, then I've done it. Then it's happened to me before. And I didn't die. I didn't give up. God didn't leave me. So if it happens again, then God will have to do it again. You know?
And do you feel more... So you know when that happened, when you're going through your process, you never knew that. You didn't have the experience now and the wisdom now. But now do you still have that good relationship with God? You know, you come through that stormy moment, but now what's it like, your relationship with God in your success?
It's hard to say because I think COVID has maybe coloured my answer. If you asked me this before the pandemic, maybe I would have said something else. But I've never felt closer to God actually than I do now.
Wow.
And because I live on my own, so it's almost like, you know, me and God live in my apartment, and I have really big windows. I'm very blessed to have amazing windows and amazing views. And it's often, every night actually, there's a different sunset, and it's almost like God is talking to me through it. He's painting the sky in different ways. And sometimes I just turn off the TV and just watch the sky and think, wow, God made all of that. And I enjoy, you know, meditation in the mornings as well with him. And because I haven't been out and about as I'm typically good at, usually I was not really even in the country. I was away so much. I would use my passport on my business card. I was always here, there, everywhere, and really having to stop and be still for the past year and a half. And it's really, for me, improved and made my relationship with God even closer. And it's not in a kind of, it doesn't feel like he's an authority that is just someone I'm having to kind of be in full deference to, and I'm scared of him. It just feels like a really loving friendship. So I don't really know if my rainstorm is affecting my relationship with God today, but I think directly after it happened, it definitely did. It made me realise, wow, okay, God, you did that, and you know, regardless of what happens in my future, I honestly really do believe that I have nothing to fear. It won't be fun all the time. It wasn't fun, you know, waking up every morning and not knowing what you were going to do. But knowing that God brought me through it, and that He didn't fail, was a really lovely feeling, and one that I think I'll keep that knowledge with me forever.
Wow. Thank you so much, Georgina, for coming and sharing your story. If you were to tell the audience just one thing that you want them to take away from, they're going through their storm right now, they're in the rain and they're looking at you thinking, you're rain. What's one thing you would tell them? What's your departing thought that you would let them know?
I think I already said it. I don't really say
Just say God,
just say God genuinely does care more about your happiness than you do. And when you really deep that, and you think, oh, so the decisions I make for myself, and you know, the things I would give to myself, if it were all up to me, and sometimes we think it is all up to us, that's not even half of what God even wants to give you. So when you are going through that storm, you are going through that difficult time, it is hard, guys, and it's so hard, but remember that fact. God cares more about your happiness and your salvation than you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Georgina, for coming.
and sharing your story with us. You're welcome.
So the question is, how has your journey been? Are you only seeing dark clouds in your life? We have heard of all types of situations. We have heard of homelessness, joblessness, restrictive health issues, financial embarrassment, etc. But where are you right now? Maybe you're in deep despair, and which is overpowering your whole life, your whole approach. But this is why we are doing this program. That is, to help you out of this state and to let you know that making a start or even a restart can turn your life around immensely. Think of it. You've been in this state for many days, maybe months or even years. You have today, well, I should really say you have this moment, and you may have the rest of today, and then you may have tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after. Don't let the moments ahead and the months ahead find you in the same position as you are right now. It is said, some people dream about success, while others stay awake and achieve it. So here's what. It may mean that, firstly, you need to be reasonable in the goals you set. Yes, it's good to aim high. However, be fair to yourself and aim reasonably as you make the climb. The rocket scientists never made rockets without having to learn elementary science. Sure, you may have dropped out of school or college, and it seems pure drudgery to go at it again. But this is where another factor plays into your progress. Prepare yourself to make a sacrifice. I have a friend who, she had a job, but she wanted to move on in her job to be able to improve herself. She has a family to feed, and she wanted to do better. And she decided she wanted to have a degree. So where she worked, she had to drive to the university after work, which was like an hour and 45 minutes away. She told me that as soon as she entered the room and the lecturer started, she went to sleep. And as soon as the lecturer was finished, which might have been after, whether it's an hour, I don't know how long, she woke up. She told me she was fresh and ready to take the journey back home. Yes, this may sound amusing, but today, that young lady has her master's. And I could only believe that she plodded on. She would not have slept all through the whole course, but her determination made it happen. So that's one of the things. We have to be prepared to make a sacrifice. The sacrifice may even mean that you may have to sit in a classroom with students who may be much your junior. And but so what? Education is for everyone, and we have to start somewhere. Trust me, that situation is just a drizzle in your life. Today, you may not even have to sit in the class to go anywhere or go to a college. You can stay at your home or do online courses, and you can start from A to PhD. So think about it and take advantage of the situations. So that application you may have had and you have written and put on the shelf because you thought that you have had so many, you have done so many previously, and it still didn't work out, you got negative responses, go back at it, redo it, among others that you may want to do, and see what happens. Your health, for you, some of it might be a health situation. Your health situation may have left you challenged. But you know what you must now do is challenge that challenge. Think of the Paralympics. I looked at the Paralympics and I tell myself, wow, I'm in such a better position probably physically, but I'm not achieving what they are achieving. And they didn't reach there where they are now by giving into their situation. Even if there were times when they felt that they may have slumped and sulked and said, why me? They didn't remain there. Maybe you are skilled and your hands, you can do lots of work with your hands, whatever it may be. whatever area you are skilled in, you can use to advance yourself. I don't believe we have enough skilled people out there to meet the needs that are out there. Decide to go for it and be the worker that people would want to wait for to have their job done. People who work well are always in demand. Above all, do not, and I want to re-emphasize, do not allow yourself to sink back into despair and hopelessness. Remember, the days are flying by very quickly, so get on board. It may not be long before you look back and wear a smile instead of a frown, as you see where you came from and what you have then achieved. Some people are at home. You may be at home right now and telling yourself, well, I'm just a homemaker. What can I do? There are a number of careers, and I can speak for UK now. I see advertised for carers or foster care, and that nature. And very often these advertisements are accompanied by training, which might be basic, or preparation in some way. That will cost you no money, and then you may have a career that can last you a lifetime. Also, even volunteering, not just for the sake of a job, but if you volunteer, it can showcase your ability, your commitment. It tells a lot about you, and you never know, maybe where you may be volunteering, you may see an opening which you can still match with your volunteering and achieve the success you so desire. I don't know if you noticed in the speakers that there were similar threads in all of the presenters. One such thread is that they were all down very low, but decided to get up again. Consider Lane's situation. He struggled with maths. He had negative comments. I mean, what more can you deal with that as a young person? However, he got something within him that told him to buckle down and try harder. And he even ended up serving the community and never thought until today that he would have been where he is today. What about Georgina? Her business struggle was indeed real. She lost a lot, and she was drowning in debt. And I'm sure she was drowning in depression too. Then we have even Keith. I'm just highlighting these for you to recap and rethink. We have Keith, who used the opportunity when his prosthesis broke. That was a truly rainy day for him. And he used the time to get into college and then further study to make him the man, the successful worker he is today. And we cannot at all leave out Norman, who even when he was not yet fully qualified as an accountant, that is, he made mileage because he had, and I can use his own words, he said he always put God first. Which brings me to another thread in this whole presentation that they would have made that linked all the presenters. They all recognized dependence on God, which contributed, as far as they are concerned, and they have discovered and they have realized that contributed to their success. I'm sure you want to make it through the rain or storm in your life as well. Use the challenges you're facing right now as stepping stones. Our guests have been thrown down, but they got up. Remember, though actual rainy days may cause us a frown, the rain itself encourages smiling flowers and bursting fruit. In other words, struggles, disappointments, failures, all these negatives do help us to grow. Lane said that it was a blessing. This is several years after he can look back and realize his situation was indeed a blessing. Georgina also said that there were times her songs that she knew from before, came to her mind, and when she was in her dark, low moments, she was able to concentrate on the words of these songs, or even probably sing them. and it helped her through. These are all gospel songs. So if we want to, let me just remind you that God has been in it for all of them. And in the Bible, there's a text in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 29 and verse 11 that reads, and I'll read it for you. For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, said the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. God's business, God is saying, God's business is about success for your life and for mine. All right? Georgina had mentioned in her discourse that in her plans, the plans she had for herself were never fruitful, but the plans God orchestrated for her were so much better. If you think no one else is on your side, remember that God is. He's on your side. He's just waiting to carry you through. We're talking about rainy days and stormy days and difficulties. Well, we've been experiencing a universal downpour. The world is saturated with COVID-19 and its variants. But consider what positives came out of this. People got closer. People have begun to cherish life even and appreciate it even more. Medical science improved. I mean, when you think of a vaccine in this sort of short space of time, while some may criticize it or not criticize it, but the point is medical science is improving and things are happening. Positive things are happening. So you don't need to fear, despite the pandemic, despite the situations. You probably think, well, you've been through so much, and now here am I, stuck with a pandemic to add to the story. Don't fear. One person said this, the only thing that is stronger than your fear is the knowledge of God's faithfulness. I am very passionate about encouraging you because I have experienced dark days, rainy days, even stormy days. And I used to long for the sunshine. But that thread that we spoke about, that ran through the other speakers, that is what brought about my sunshine. I know you want to make it. I know you can make it. Just pick up the pieces. Close your ears to negativity. Open your minds to positivity and blessing. And remember, blessings come from where? They come from God. Sometimes we create our own crises, but the God we serve still will intervene. Whether you believe it or not, he still would intervene. You can prove him. Just go for it. Trust God and take it from there. And he will see you through. Believe me, I've been there. I've done that, as the Americans say. So I thank you for listening, and I want us to now pray so that we can someday look back and realize this is what made the difference. God made the difference. Let's bow our heads. Father, we thank you for your goodness and your love and your mercies. We thank you for the listeners and for what we have presented. We pray a blessing upon it. We pray that no one in the hearing of our voices and the voices of the speakers and the moderator would have not gleaned something that is going to take them forward. And we pray as they make that journey that you may be with them, guide them, and help that they too one day can present their own program encouraging someone to trust you and to go for it. This I pray with thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.